Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Five Star Zone. I'm your host, Rico Beard. Big Ten Week 9 wrap up as we had two trophy games on the line, at least two. Michigan State, Michigan played for the Paul Bunyan Trophy, and Iowa and Minnesota, the Floyd of Rosedale, the Pig Trophy. And yeah, both teams who had the trophy last year got to keep the trophy this year. For Iowa, man, it was an easy game. Gronowski led the Hawkeyes with a balanced attack. As a matter of fact, guys, Iowa ran for a touchdown, threw for a touchdown, had a pick six, and had a punt return as they just demolished the Gophers 41-3. Minnesota never in this game in Iowa. Iowa just they dominated and it was a balanced attack. And I mean truly a balanced attack from offense to defense. There was nothing that Minnesota could do. PJ Fleck just left scratching his head. And if you're Iowa, here's the beauty of it. You've now entered the chat as, are you the fourth best team in the Big Ten? The Big Ten will have three teams in the playoffs. I think we could all agree upon that. There will be Ohio State, there will be Indiana, and there will be Oregon. After that, it's going to be a race to see if they get four. And honestly, guys, I don't know if the Big Ten even gets four teams. If they get four teams, it's simply because, you know what, the College Football Playoff Committee just deemed it necessary that the Big Ten must always have four. If the Big Ten gets a fourth team, I'm looking for it to be the weakest team. I mean, that's going to be, honestly, in my belief, a step below whoever group of five team that they allow in there. Because when I look at these bottom teams that are trying to go for that fourth spot, not great. Iowa's just methodical. They can play great defense. Offense is lacking, and they're a lot better team at home. Newsflash, you won't be playing any home games. You're going to be going on the road. Michigan. Okay, well, Michigan, they come off of the victory of Michigan State, but Michigan just looks like a team that they can run the ball. They can play great defense, but their passing game under Bryce Underwood, the super heralded freshman, lacking. Just lacking. Not looking like a playoff team. Looking like a good team, not looking like a playoff team. Washington comes back, and they bounce back from their losing to Michigan last week. And they beat a ranked Illinois team. But Washington, great team in Seattle. Not such a great team anyplace else. When they leave the comfort of Husky Stadium, that's not the same team. So, and once again, you're going to be playing on the road. I don't know. USC has an opportunity. We'll see what they can do. I mean, they're Lincoln Riley and that team is so inconsistent. So, I say all this to say right now, it looks like Iowa may be the team to beat for that fourth spot, but there's going to be a lot of there's just going to be a lot of different things that we got to wait upon. As a matter of fact, let me pull up Iowa's schedule. Let's see what Iowa has coming on for the rest of the year. All right, we're going to find out really quickly what Iowa's about because Iowa has Oregon, USC real quick in 2 weeks. Iowa beats Oregon. Iowa beats USC. Iowa will be that fourth team. Conversely, USC for their final games, they're going to go at Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa, at Oregon, UCLA. So Oregon is going to play a key cog in this. Oregon is a playoff team. If you can get past Oregon, I think that's the biggest test that, yes, if you get past Oregon, then you too can be deemed a playoff team. But right now, I don't see that. For Michigan, Michigan's got really one big game left on their season. That's Ohio State. Now, the beauty of it is Michigan's beaten Ohio State for the last 4 times. If they can make it five in a row, brand name, Michigan, they will get that spot. But when you look at Michigan, is that really a playoff team? No, it is not. They're a good team, not a great team. They're inconsistent. They can run the ball. They can play defense. But when they play better teams that I deem to have more talent than them, they lose. And it ain't pretty when they lose. So that's what I'm saying. If you're Michigan, I don't know. You know, I've been waiting to see this breakout game from Underwood when you're not playing a Central Michigan of the world. I haven't seen it. against East Lansing. Bryce Underwood had less than 100 yards passing, and I think 45% completion ratio. Not good. So, but if you could beat Ohio State with the name brand that you are in Michigan, you'll get that final spot. So it to me, it's just going to be very interesting to see which of the teams could possibly get that final spot. And I guess, as I stated, Oregon is going to be the key factor, because whereas Michigan has to play Ohio State, Oregon plays the other three teams. And it is Washington, that's their season finale. They got Oregon at home. Now that helps because Washington, as I said earlier, different team at home. So maybe the Huskies can pull it out. But once again, Huskies, flawed. Great team at home, on the road, not so much. So we'll see. As of now, I think I'd rather give that extra spot to an SEC team. And look, I know this is a Big Ten podcast, but I got to tell you the truth. Big Ten is very top heavy. And in the middle, they're all kind of, yeah. So, yeah, I think I'd rather see a fifth team coming from the SEC, them getting their shot and making the playoffs a little bit better. Or maybe the ACC gets an extra team. I don't know. But I don't think it's anybody who thinks it's going to be a clear-cut path for the Big Ten to get four teams in there. I don't see it happening unless somebody can upset Oregon or Michigan upsets Ohio State. Other than that, I think water will find its level, and you'll see all of these teams that we're talking about with at least 3 losses, and 3 losses is not going to get you into the college football playoff. Sorry, that's just how it is. And then, I think we're all leading up to a collision course for the Big Ten championship game. I think it's a game. Unfortunately, they're not going to play in the regular season, but I kind of like that because it's Ohio State, who had to bye this week, and Indiana. And Indiana went back to just crushing people. Indiana's scoring 50-plus points like it's just nobody's business. They can't be stopped. Signetti and that train is going. Mendoza is continuing with his Heisman hype. Another 3 touchdowns, not as many yards, but another 3 touchdowns. They used a lot of the ground game. I mean, just flat out embarrassment of UCLA. And UCLA was that hot, fun team. UCLA fell back to earth. Coach Skipper, no shame in going and getting pummeled by Indiana, because that's just what Indiana football is all about. There's no mercy. And I said it before, Signetti is ruining the lives of so many head coaches. So many people now are going to be compared to Kirk Signetti. And the funny thing about it, kudos to Indiana. You took a chance on a guy that most people wouldn't. You took a chance on a guy that most people deemed, James Madison, not big enough school. We're better than that. You took a chance on a guy, he's way too old. We're better than that. He's crazy. We're better than that. Signetti said, Google me. And when you Google him, you see all he does is win. He reminds me a lot of a John Beilein, where Beilein was just a winner no matter where he went, and that's Signetti. And because of which, I think Indiana is the perfect place for him. I don't see Kirk Signetti jumping into this coaching carousel as new jobs open up daily. If I'm Signetti, life is perfect. It's perfect in Bloomington. You are the man. You are God. You are the guy that people are going to be singing songs about for years. Occasionally a coach comes to a place and it's the right fit at the right time, and nothing can take away from that, and you'd be foolish to leave Bloomington, Indiana. They've already ponied up to pay you the money. There is no pressure. You create the pressure. The only pressure you have is can you duplicate what you did last year, and it looks like you're going to do that. And now the only pressure from that is, can you do that again the next year? Indiana's now become a football school. Indiana's now got a taste of winning football. And I don't think Indiana wants to go backwards, as you see the way they ponied up for him. For him to go to a place like Penn State or any other place, foolish. And he made the right choice. You stay there. You build your own dynasty, and you make it difficult for the next guy who has to replace you at Indiana. But right now, Indiana, they nailed it. And they took a chance. And I think what you're going to see pretty soon is a couple of teams in the Big Ten are going to have to make that choice. Do you go after the big name, or do you take a chance Why? Remember, Indiana had just paid out Tom Allen $15 million. Now, I know nowadays it doesn't sound like much, but at the time, Indiana parting ways with a coach and giving him $15 million, huh? That's the death sentence. That means we're done. We don't have anything left. We're going to have to borrow from hoops. That's why they went out. They got Signetti kind of on a prove-it deal, and he proved it. He proved it again and again and again and again. He brought his guys with him from James Madison, and they hit the ground running. They made the playoffs. Look, they got blown out in the playoffs, but they made the playoffs. And then they followed it up this year through the portal and through going out and recruiting and getting people. And he showed that I'm not a one-hit wonder. There would be no fall off. I'm guilty of thinking it was going to be a fallout. Was no fall off. They kept this thing going. That's going to be a problem. It's going to be very problematic because right now I'm looking at two schools. UCLA has already cut ties. They're in the process of looking for a new coach. Every day I'm expecting to see what's going to happen at Wisconsin. Every day I'm expecting to see what's going to happen at Michigan State. For Wisconsin, I guess Michigan State and Wisconsin had moral victories. But, man, it wasn't that long ago that those two teams were playing in I guess it actually was that long ago. Now that you think about it, it was, 14 years ago that they played in the inaugural Big Ten championship game in Indy. And now both teams just kind of seeing who's going to hit the bottom first. Wisconsin, Luke Fickell, I believe, has like close to a $40 million buyout if you get rid of him. I don't know if Wisconsin is the type of school that will just pony up the money to buy him out, but it looks like Fickell has just lost his team. You had a moral victory kind of because you didn't get waxed by Oregon, but I would say that's because Dante Moore got injured, and honestly, I think you really weren't a threat to Oregon. You were kind of a get-right game to Oregon where let's not get injured. Let's just kind of do what we got to do and move on to the next game, and they won 21-7. So they didn't blow you out, but you never really had a chance. And for Wisconsin, where do you go from there? Do you go back to the Barry Alvarez type of offense where it's just run the ball? Do you try to find your identity again? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much money the Wisconsin boosters can come up with and try to do what you can. Do you patch things up with Bielema and try to bring him back? I don't know. I just know right now it's weird to see Wisconsin football, normally a tough team in the Big Ten, sitting there at the bottom and just bad. I mean, Purdue is bad, but Purdue I expect to get better under a first-year coach. Wisconsin, I don't see how they get better. And speaking of not getting better, that's Michigan State. Jonathan Smith and Michigan State, I was at the game, Michigan State game. And look, say what you want, depending on which side of the fence you are. But I think most even Wolverines can say there are a lot of questionable calls in that game. And real quick, I've often said this. As bad as, look, Jonathan Smith had to come and face the music to the media. Aiden Childs had a horrible game. He had to face the music. I've never understood why referees do not have to sit in front of a microphone and explain their calls and explain their mistakes and own up to things publicly. Instead, they get to slink off into the night and nobody gets to talk to these guys, even though they affect games on every level. I've never understood that. Why they exempt from having to explain themselves. Good day, bad day. They should have to talk to the media. It's one of the dumbest principles in sports, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, hockey, whatever. Referees should have to face the music. But anyway, I digress. Some bad calls. I mean, the offside call, it doesn't help you when the head of officiating on Peacock says, you know what, he timed it perfectly. It should have been a a sack fumble, and MSU gets the ball. Now, for those who say, well, it's not that big of a deal and Michigan just outplayed them, it's momentum. I take you back to last week. Michigan and Washington played in a 7-7 game going into the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden, you look out there, and Michigan gets a turnover, and that turnover just started the avalanche, and next thing you know, they beat Washington at home. I think the same may have happened because that Michigan team after the first touchdown really wasn't moving the ball. State wasn't moving the ball, but it was that spark. Just similar to early in the game, Aiden Childs fumbles, Michigan gets a short field, Michigan goes in, they score. They kick the field goal and they score and they get the ball going early. And then next thing you know, they're up 10-0 and so on and so on. A lot of bad calls in that game, but that's not to take away from just the bad decisions from both coaches. Because Sharon Moore don't understand why at halftime, right before half, 3 seconds left, you have a timeout. You just choose to run out the clock. You're at about the 50-yard line. Why not throw up a Hail Mary? If you're saying, well, that doesn't work, I hearken you back to when you played Nebraska and they threw up a Hail Mary against you at halftime and it succeeded. It would have cost you nothing but that timeout that I guess you drove back to Ann Arbor with. But that was a bad decision. It wasn't just me because I saw a lot of Michigan people, a lot of Michigan beat writers and people who follow the team, and they were just as curious as I was of why didn't he just use the timeout and go for a Hail Mary? But you won the game. So you get excused for that. Still bad, poor coaching, but you get excused for that. Jonathan Smith, on the other hand, he started chasing points. And once you start chasing points, you go from being a coach to a gambler. And once you start gambling, you never win. That's why Vegas will always be Vegas. He went for 2 because analytics, and analytics may be the dumbest things when it comes to sports because analytics will just cause you to do some outlandish things that common sense says you don't do. But MSU scores, it's 24-13. And instead of just making it 24-14, a 10-point game, they decide to go for 2. I guess you're looking to the future of a walk-off field goal. We'll get to that in a second. So they go for 2 and they don't get it. Now, had they just gone for kick the extra point, it would have been a 10-point game. Then Michigan State gets the ball down there. It's a 4th and 3. Rather than line up to kick like about a 45-yard field goal, they go for it, and the pass is short, and they don't get it. And now you've left more points out on the field. Why? Because you started chasing points earlier in the game. If you were setting yourself up for the walk-off field goal, then why not just kick the field goal there now and then maybe get a walk-off touchdown? But you didn't do either of those because you said, well, it's not a gimme. Well, I don't understand because against Indiana last week, you stuck your field goal kicker out there, I guess, to ruin the spread, but you said that you wanted to get him practice. And now all of a sudden you didn't want to use your kicker at all this game because you had another time where it was 4th and 1. Now, the 4th and 1 I can understand because it was 4th and 1. Michigan wasn't set. But Aiden Childs, and let's face it, played probably one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. He has been so up and down this season. Last week, at Indiana, they lose, but it's like, man, he completed 20 passes in a row. He had that long 63-yard run. And it's like, okay, man, if he just had some help. Well, this game, it was like, man, if they just had a quarterback because he just didn't look right. Now, earlier in the year, he had a couple times where he got hit, and I think he had a concussion. And I don't know if he did or not, but he just didn't look the same. In this game, it was bad across the board. As a matter of fact, let me pull up his stats. His stats were, Childs was 14 for 28, so he threw for 50%. 130 yards. He missed a lot of passes, overthrow. He tried to force the ball into Nick Marsh. It was one pass he threw to the running back where he was like 3 yards short on a, I don't know, it looks like the running back was a safety valve, Tolliver. He just didn't look right in the game. He fumbled on the opening drive on a 3rd down, and Michigan got it, kicked a field goal. It just didn't look right. I mean, Alessio Milo, just say with Alessio. Alessio, the backup QB, comes in. He scores. He goes 5 of 6. Now, yeah, the game is over, but I do think Jonathan Smith has to now ask himself, well, a couple things. One is his key card was working this week, so he's going to be the coach against Minnesota. But do you make a quarterback change? Do you see what your backup QB has, and can you ride this guy? And maybe that's the spark that turns this team around. Maybe that's the spark that saves your job, or maybe it's the kick in the butt that Aiden Childs needs to realize I got to do better and I got to be a better leader for this team. I don't know, but if you're watching this, when the Alessio goes in the game, it just feels a little bit better. Now, granted, the backup QB is always the most popular person. The backup QB, there's less pressure on him because most of the time he's coming in mop-up duty. I would like to see what would happen if he got some real snaps, some real going up against that number one defense on the other side, to see what he has, to see what he can do. Because maybe, a desperate Jonathan Smith makes a desperate move and makes a quarterback change to try to salvage his season, because for Smith, I think running the table is the only thing that could save that man's job. And from what I've heard and from people I've talked to, losing a job may just be inevitable. It may be something, check back with me in a week, because MSU may be adding their name to the list of all the other teams like LSU and Penn State who said, hey, we're going to be moving on from our coach. Then we're going to be looking to see what else is out there. But, yeah, I think for Smith, maybe if he can run the table, win the last 4 games, and win a bowl game, that would buy enough equity with the fan base that they would then say, okay, well, maybe we need to give this guy another year. But I just don't see the next year coming. I just don't see it happening for him. Kind of like Fickle, it's going to be a buyout. It's going to be like a $31 million buyout. And if you're Michigan State, I've said it before, you got to figure out how serious you are about winning and what you want to be, because it's there. Now, you're going to be playing a Minnesota team who's going to be very angry. They got embarrassed in their trophy game. I talked about it earlier. They lost 41-3. And maybe, just maybe, PJ Fleck could be auditioning for the next job. Maybe MSU makes a move for PJ Fleck, but we'll get to that stuff later if it happens. But if you're Jonathan Smith, if you're Luke Fickell, you can't be feeling good about yourself, especially seeing a guy like Brian Kelly on Sunday night. He gets whacked by his AD. Tell me if you heard this story before, but you lose a game, you lose a homecoming game, and your crowd doesn't like it. That just happened to both of those guys, except for LSU just walked in and said no. Penn State walked in and said no. They didn't care about the money. And for me, look, guys, the money's not real. The money is not real. For everybody worried about, well, how are we going to pay? First of all, it's not coming out of your money. It's not coming out of tuition. It's coming. These schools are generating so much money. They're just cheap. They don't want to pay it. It's just like anybody. You want to keep your own money in your own pocket. But they could make the move if they want to make the move. They just choose not to make the move. Heck, if they just use the TV money that they get every year alone of over $100 million, that's enough to buy off your coaches that you don't need to bleed the boosters dry. But these schools are just cheap as hell, and they want to pass the savings on to you. That's what they want to do. Here's the cost. I don't want to pay it. Let me ask my customers, my richest customers, to pay this stuff. And we fall for it because we're broke. You're not broke. You're not broke. I've yet to see a school put up a lock on the stadium and say out of business because we're broke. It's kind of like a government shutdown. It's a big threat, but the government doesn't shut down. Well, we shut down for a day or two. Yeah, no, you close some natural parks out in Wyoming. That's about it. Okay. Real talk. No program's going to shut down. Programs have money. You're signing all of these billion-dollar TV deals. It's hard for me to believe you're broke. It's hard for me to believe you can't pony up the money to make the fixes, to figure out what you want to do. But I think it's easier to hide behind the cloak of we're broke, so you don't have to be a serious football team. So you don't have to be a team that actually demands winning. You don't have to be a team that demands excellence, because you could use the whole thing of we're broke to not go further and to dupe your fans into just accepting gruel instead of feeding them steak that they want. And then when they see other people eating the steak, you just say, well, we don't have the type of money that they have. Really? Because I look at schools like Indiana. You mean to tell me Indiana is now a have? outside the Big Ten. I look at schools like Houston. Really? You tell me Houston is not one of these big-time schools now in the Big 12? Willie Fritz has that team moving. He's been there for 2 years, and Houston looks pretty good in both sports. Look, the money is there. I think schools just choose to be cheap, and I think schools have mastered the art in selling their fan base that, well, you know what? They're pulling their pockets inside out. We're broke. Where's the money going to come from? If you want to make some changes, pay us the money. Or how about this? If that's the case, plain and simple, if you're that broke and you're going to tell the fans to help you out and you want to be a poverty school, then act like a poverty school. Cut back your ticket prices. Give the fans a break because, you know, if you're broke, your fans are probably broke too. Cut back the parking, cut back the concessions, cut back everything and make it fair across the board. And then I think maybe your fans will listen to you. But instead, you still raise ticket prices every year. You raise parking, you raise everything, and then you cry broke. And that's bullcrap. And but stupid people will believe whatever they want to believe. But I'm not one to believe that. Well, we don't fundraise money. That's your problem. That's not my problem. That's not your fans' problem. You figure it out. You want your fans to support your team. If you put it this way, if you can invest in yourself, why should your fan base invest in you? Why should your rich donors invest in you if you can't invest in yourself? Think about that over the week and decide if you want to be real schools or not. Because if I'm a Badger fan, if I'm a Spartan fan, I cannot be happy with what I'm seeing right now. Both programs have had excellence, and now both programs are sitting in the cellar, hoping and praying something good happens because neither team is happy being undefeated, winless in the Big Ten. Anyway, that's the 5-star zone for the week. It's your wrap up for week 9. Bigger week coming up, but once again, I think the games are going to be the spreads when you look at them. I think the cream will keep rising to the top. It'll be the battle of the middling teams, as I said before. Oregon's going to be the team that really decides if there's going to be a fourth team in the Big Ten going to the playoffs, because Oregon's going to play most of these teams except for Michigan, and Ohio State will decide that for the University of Michigan. But for now, I'm your host, Rico Beard. I'll be back later on. Thanks for watching the 5-Star Zone.